But I really don't have any regrets. I really don't. I've lived exactly how I've wanted to. I've tried my hardest every single time. I didn't win the matches that maybe I should have always won, but I really gave it my all. So that for me is enough.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Body Serve. I'm Jonathan.
And I'm James.
We are done with Cincinnati. We have said and bid farewell to the Lindner Family Tennis Center in Mason, Ohio.
Yeah, it's been quite a week. It gets a little easier, I think, every year. The rain was rather trying for a few days there.
It seems like we have to deal with rain on some level every year.
Yeah, I mean, it is August in the Northeast. It's going to happen. But the parking lots are kind of a mud pit out here. A lot of the players had to play twice in a day. Even doubles quarterfinals and semifinals were both played on Saturday.
But you know what? Somebody who had to play a lot of tennis this week, Novak Djokovic, who played, I believe, 16 sets this week, was delayed multiple times, had to play 2 matches in one day. He is your champion, and he is, as they say, the Golden Master. He who has won every Masters title that there is.
We're not going to use the Golden Masters on this podcast because it doesn't make sense in tennis context.
I think I just did.
Because golden in tennis is like a golden slam. It means you have a gold medal. So while it is an incredible achievement, I just think it needs a better name. That's it. What he's done across all different surfaces over this past decade is obviously remarkable. What he did this week, not playing his best tennis, getting tested by Milos, Grigor Dimitrov, Cilic, a lot of different, but even Manarino in his first match.
This was quite a few 3-set matches.
Not Novak at his best, but he is brilliant when necessary.
Mm-hmm. And in this particular final, it's the most high-profile final that we've had the privilege to watch, and it did not deliver because Roger Federer did not deliver on his end.
All right, so we'll get to that. Let's start with the women's final.
Okay.
Kiki Bertens from the Netherlands took out number 1 Simona Halep in 3 sets. Man, so the second set was very good, I would say. It was entertaining. The first and the third were not so great.
Let's start with what was on offer. What were the stakes for this match? Because for Simona Halep, she was bidding to become the first woman since Yvonne Goolagong in 1973 to win both Canada and Cincinnati in the same summer.
Right.
I don't want to say back-to-back because I don't know what the calendar was like back then, but...
Well, and to be fair, Cincinnati was not played for quite a long time. Like, over 20 years in 2 different stretches, women didn't play in Cincinnati. Mm-hmm. So it's not quite like, a 50-year stretch.
Yeah, but it's still a cool stat. It was something.
It is.
And it's a difficult achievement.
It is, because most years they are back-to-back. These hard courts are very hot. It's very humid in all 3 cities that it's played, Toronto, Montreal, and Cincinnati. You're dealing with rain delays, storms. It's just a lot. And the fact that no one has done it, I think, speaks to that.
Well, Simona won in Montreal, and she came here, and her first match against Ajla Tomljanovic was tough. It was rain delayed. She had to play 2 matches. She had to come back and finish the next day and then play again that night. But since then, she's won everything in straight sets. So it wasn't a difficult path, I would say, to the final. But the cumulative effect of having won last week and then making the final this week is that she's got a lot of mileage on her legs. And you asked her in press after her win last night whether or not she felt like she needed to get it done in 2 sets, mm-hmm. that if she would have enough stamina to go 3, and she said, yeah, I feel like I could have played forever.
Right. She said unequivocally, no, I felt like I had a lot left. I wasn't worried about that. And she felt confident that she could kind of outlast her opponent by running. Mm-hmm. But to be fair to her, and I think to give her more credit than she gives herself, she played a very aggressive, economical semifinal even.
Yeah, but what we saw today at the start of that third set is that she was totally gassed.
Absolutely.
Which was a little bit surprising.
Mm-hmm. So she runs through the first set 6-2, it looked like if she could make it through the second set, this would be kind of an uneventful final. If the same things were happening. Kiki looked maybe a little bit nervous. She was making a lot of errors. And Simona was just doing almost exactly what she did in the semifinal.
Mm-hmm.
She was obviously using her speed, which is a great weapon, but she was staying aggressive. Her forehand was particularly strong. She was hitting winners. She was even looking to move forward. Not always, but occasionally. I was thinking, okay, well, this might be a straight set final. It might not be that exciting.
Mm-hmm. But you had just sat through Bertens' semifinal against Petra Kvitova, and it was almost a carbon copy
Right.
as to what happened today.
Right.
It was humid conditions. Kiki started nervously, lost the first set, found her way into the second set, went up in both sets. Today, Simona clawed her way back, and in that, with Bertens up 4-1, Simona called for Darren Cahill. He came on coach, they got their shit together, and Simona came right back out and won 3 games, had a break point to go up 5-4 and then serve for the match. Bertens dug in and played some excellent tennis.
Mm-hmm.
And so she was able to replicate what she did against Petra, coming from a set down and then running away with it in the third.
Right. It's so interesting to me not being an athlete. Like, what goes through your head after you lose that first set so badly? And clearly with her, it was like, well, I know what I can do. If I start to step in and play more aggressively, I'm bound to start making it. I don't know how you tell yourself, I need to serve better, and then actually do it. And that's what happened.
Sure, but that's easier said than done. She's playing the world number 1, Simona Halep, who is playing the ball of her life this year.
Mm-hmm.
She is by far and away the best player on tour, I think.
Right.
And the most consistent player. And when you've seen her put that down in the first set and let you know that this ain't going to be no easy business for you today, Kiki, and for you to then wheel and come again and reset and bring your best tennis after that on what was historically your least favorite surface. This is your first hard court final.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's a big one.
It was absolutely impressive.
Well, that's exactly what I'm saying. I'm saying she sat down and thought, what am I doing wrong? I'm not returning well enough. I'm not serving well enough. And she went on to fix those things. She beat 4 top 10 players this week. We mentioned Kvitova. She also beat Wozniacki and Svitolina. Simona Halep is the first reigning world number 1 that Bertens has beaten. This puts her at number 7 in the race to Singapore with, a very good chance to qualify, especially if she keeps this momentum up.
She's up to a career high number 13 in the rankings. You mentioned the top 10 players that she's beaten. I believe it's up to 9 now on the season.
I think Simona was the 10th.
10.
Yeah.
She's beaten 10 top 10 players this year. And this is from somebody who told us in press yesterday that she considered quitting tennis at the end of 2017.
Right, she just dropped that in, and then kind of moved on.
Well,
and
she was skillfully asked about it.
Well, she was pressed about it, of
Yeah.
course. Now, Simona's run, like you said, she wasn't tested for most of it. Let's talk about this semifinal with Sabalenka, because that was really impressive. It was by far the best match that I've ever seen Simona Halep play in person.
I was thoroughly impressed. I was like, wow, this is a boss-ass performance by the world number 1. Right. This is a world number 1 type performance.
Yeah.
Because you have this young woman who is feeling herself, who hits the ball like no other young person I've seen in recent years. Like this, Arina Sabalenka, if she's able to progress and be consistent, she is going to beat a whole lot of people.
Yeah. She's another one who's just slaying giants out here all year. She and her teammates made the Fed Cup final last year. She's from Belarus. She made the Eastbourne final, and she was having kind of a Star is Born moment at this tournament. This is the first time that a lot of American fans have watched her play, and she is a tiny bit controversial because of the grunt, I guess, but she is absolutely electrifying to watch in person because it's rare to see someone play tennis without fear, and that sounds like such a cliche, but she makes things happen that shouldn't realistically happen.
How many times were we sitting watching that match and you just laughed at the ridiculousness that she was doing on court?
Right, because it's like, not only did she make it, why did she even attempt it from that position? Like, she can hit winners from everywhere.
Didn't she save a match point with a 116-mile-an-hour ace?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Absurd.
So Sabalenka is clearly one to watch. I mean, people have been telling us that here and there quite a bit. We saw her, drag Caroline Garcia through a 3-set match that Caroline was not happy to be in.
Well, she was up 5-3 in that third set and managed to lose at 5-7.
Right. But Simona's performance against Sabalenka, a player on the rise, and who could really challenge her in a way that maybe Muguruza did last year in the final here, just thwack the hell out of the ball. It was very mature, and it felt so different from the Simona from last year, who sometimes came into these big matches frozen. We were able to talk to both Simona in several press conferences, and also her coach, Darren Cahill, was made available for a kind of coaching roundtable. I think that Simona and Darren are one of the relationships in tennis that people find most interesting.
And we don't mean that in a sexual way.
No, not at all. Their coaching relationship is a hot topic on tennis social media always. So to hear Simona and Darren talk about each other and kind of how Simona has evolved as a player is very interesting to me, and hopefully to you all. So take a listen to what we have here, and then we'll break it down a little bit.
Simona, you sat here a year ago apologizing for your performance at the Rogers Cup and then had similar words in the final here. Can you look back over the last 12 months where you transformed your big match play and now you're just coming through in all the big moments?
Yeah, with experience from those moments, I think I got better this year, and for sure they helped me a lot. It was tough last year, maybe the pressure also of being number one in the world, so I didn't know how to manage it. But now I feel different, I feel stronger mentally, and I enjoy more. Even after French Open, it was a big success and my dream came true. I still feel good on court, and I can say I'm more relaxed and I can enjoy more.
Simona, you've had these 2 long finals against Sloane Stephens this year. What do you think is the difference? What is helping you get through these matches? Is it, better mental strength, your physicality?
Well, about yesterday we can talk that was like very close, and I don't really know what was the key of the match to win it, but for sure I didn't give up any point, and maybe with more experience in the tough moments, I could win the match. But she improved a lot in the last year, and it's a different person in my opinion on court. So it's always nice to see that I'm able to win these matches. It was a great performance winning against her every time, and also French Open final. She was leading in the first set and then break. So I feel like yesterday I was just stronger mentally, but I compare myself now with the past, not with her, because she is also strong mentally. She didn't give up, but were a few balls that decided the match.
Darren, you've said that one of your long-term goals over the duration of your time with Simona has been for her to be able to troubleshoot better on court.
Yeah.
And we've seen, especially this year at the French Open, when she was down against Sloane, that she was able to do that, you could say finally, in the big moment. Are you now able to take a more firm stance with her when she wants that mid-match counseling, because you can say, like, look, you just did it? And is that something kind of the way you were thinking in Montreal?
It's the first time I've ever shook her off. So it's the first time she's ever called for me, and I gave the not coming out. So I don't expect I'll do that often, because it was more just knowing that she had it. If she could just reach down deep and find it, she just had to do it herself. And sometimes those moments also piss her off a little bit, which gets her fired up, and instead of concentrating on me, she concentrates on her opponent a little bit as well. So I'm learning all the time with her. I think that coaching it's like an ocean. It's always moving, and if you're not moving with it, you're not learning. And with her, I feel like there's so much to her personality and her game and the way she plays that I'm learning as a coach all the time. So hopefully that helps me be a better coach as well. I don't think that I've changed my coaching all that much. I think I listen better. than I used to her. I used to walk out and have a set opinion as to what she needed to do to win a tennis match without really listening to what she was saying, which is normal because we have 60 seconds to walk out there, got to get it done, get the message across, come off, and hopefully they implement. Now I feel like I listen to her words, see if she's struggling, see what she's struggling with, and try to find a quick resolution for her, or something at least to go out there and concentrate on. So it's been good, but I don't think my coaching has changed that much. But hopefully I'm becoming a better listener.
So Simona talks about how she feels after winning the French Open and being at number one and being comfortable at number one for a long time, that she is a very different player. Mm-hmm. That she's not kind of paralyzed by that fear. Some of the pressure has been relieved. And it's a lot of players, when they win their major, do not recover this well.
No.
Obviously.
It's absolutely to her credit, her and Darren's credit, that she's been able to come back since the French Open and play so well.
Right. Now, for Darren's part, I enjoyed how humble he sounded as a coach. How he talked about active listening and being willing to evolve as a coach, because he is such a respected mind in tennis. Respected among commentators, players. I mean, he does it all. And for him to be willing to really dig in to this relationship with Simona I think says a lot about him as a coach.
He also has a cash cow. Let's not overlook that part of it.
Oh, for sure. But I mean, he puts in work.
Yeah.
He left Simona. He addressed that as well. Mm-hmm. That he saw that as kind of a last resort.
And what did he say? Coaching is like the ocean. That was so great.
Like an ocean. It's always moving. If you're not listening to your player, you're not learning. Some other women's matches that we liked.
Well, we haven't talked about Serena and Petra yet, have we?
No. We were lucky enough to be blessed with a Serena Petra match in the second round of this tournament. We wrote a bit about this earlier in the week. This kind of feels like the rivalry that never was, and we wish could be. These two, I think it's because their peak is so high, like of the past maybe 15 years, their best is the most dominating.
That's a big statement.
I think that's true. I think Petra at Wimbledon, when she's peaking, is like nothing tennis has ever seen. And I mean, with Serena, it kind of goes without saying.
Heading into this match, they'd only played 6 times. Serena led 5-1, and now it's a 5-2 head-to-head because Miss Petra Kvitova won in 3 sets. Mm-hmm. There's something that I found difficult to assess from watching tennis live, and it's maybe because I'm not trained to be watching tennis this way, or maybe I'm not trained to be watching it from up high in the media box, which is a totally different view from the angles that we get on TV.
Yeah.
I find it difficult to assess the level of play in some of these matches. Mm-hmm. You know, like for me, the Petra-Serena match didn't feel like a great match. It felt like a good match, but it didn't feel like I was watching something special. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. But it's special because of the context, because it's something we rarely get to see. Also, watching Serena play live, just from a selfish standpoint, is something I haven't seen enough, and I relish like every moment that I can see it. I think that at times they both were playing well at the same time, mm-hmm. and most of the times one was surging while the other was making a lot of mistakes.
As evidenced by the scoreline.
Right. So the second set, again, was clearly the best. Happened to be the one that Serena won, but it was tighter, it was more competitive. There were long rallies, which, interestingly, Serena came out on top of most of the long rallies, which is something that she's not used to.
And she also said that she was looking forward to playing the long rallies, which is something that she's not used to doing.
Right.
You know, she likes to end points quickly, but she figured out within that match that playing the longer points, she was able to get into a rhythm and upset Petra even more.
Mm-hmm. And I think that she showed that she's more confident with her conditioning right now. She was patient in the rallies. She wasn't going for winners from bad positions. Her feet seemed to be moving a bit better, which, I mean, there were up and downs with her movement throughout the match, I think. But for me, this is clearly worlds away from the performance against Joanna Konta in San Jose. But I think we have reasons to be optimistic. Serena herself said this is going to be a long road. She feels she's at the very beginning of the comeback. But I think it's heading in the right direction.
Her play against Gavrilova was excellent.
It really was.
Her movement was the best it's looked since she's come back. And while she started slowly against Petra, by the end of the second set, she had figured out the serve out wide on the backhand, and it looked like she was getting her teeth into the match. Where this is a different Serena, not quite the Serena that we're used to, is that after getting the break to start the third set, she ends up losing it 6-2. Like, that's not something that we're used to seeing.
Right.
She wasn't able to run away or keep that lead in the third set.
And Serena said, people were saying on Twitter during the match, it's like, hello, Petra's serving out wide almost every time. Why are you not reading it? And she addressed that after and was like, well, eventually I started reading it, but it's still a lefty Kvitova serve out wide. Like, it's not that easy to return, even if you're heading in the right direction.
And even if you read it a couple times, or you guess a couple times, maybe she's giving herself the benefit of the doubt of saying she was reading it. Maybe it's about guesswork, and say you guess right, and then she bombs it up the tee.
Right.
When somebody has that big of a weapon, and we know what the lefty serve can do, you have any number of options if you're able to execute it.
Yes, and if you're leaning too far to one side, you're totally exposed down the tee. And I think Petra would learn that pattern as well, right? So I really enjoyed watching Petra this week. She had a nice little run. She doesn't typically perform very well at Cincinnati.
She had only once previously made the semifinal.
Yeah.
I believe that was 2012. She talks about the humidity.
Humidity.
As she pronounced it, it's one of the best things I've ever heard. I am by no means mocking her, but the way Petra Kvitova pronounces the word humidity gives me life.
She seems so comfortable being famous now, doesn't she?
She's blossomed.
I don't know, like, obviously we'd never interviewed her when she was 20 years old, when she was out there in 2009 beating Dinara Safina at the US Open. She seemed like such a shy, reserved girl. And now she walks into press and she's making jokes with everybody. Like, she is the life of the party.
A lot of people, when they come into press, the first thing they do is greet everybody and say, hi, how are you? They're very pleasant. But Petra is a next level.
Yes.
And everything about her seems so sincere and sweet. It was... I know that our jobs as press, and people critique press about this all the time. You're not there to be friends with the players.
Right.
Every time there's any semblance of enjoyment on the part of press, it's like, well, why aren't you being objective, and why aren't you writing this, and why aren't you taking down my enemy, the enemy of my fave?
Yes.
But when you're in those moments and somebody comes in and there's a genuine human moment of somebody saying, hi, how are you? You give it back. And then that starts the process. It doesn't preclude you from asking a tough question if you need to, but the general tenor of the press conference, by and large, universally, is not an antagonistic environment. It's a very low-key, friendly environment.
Sometimes you're going to piss off the players, but it doesn't have to be antagonistic or adversarial, right? So let's talk about this men's final. Federer and Djokovic, their 46th meeting. They were 23 and 22 coming into it, with Djokovic leading, and they were tied on hard courts.
So what was at stake at this match? Because both finals had quite a bit at stake.
Yeah. Djokovic has lost in the Cincinnati final 5 times before. This was his 6th. He said he felt some pressure here before because the losses were kind of piling up. They were kind of weighing on him. And it's hard to explain, really, why he has lost here that many times when he's won every other Masters event and Grand Slam. So that was at stake. Obviously, this would complete the set, what people are calling the Golden Masters, as we said earlier. For Djokovic, I would say that there's less at stake for Federer.
Yeah, I would say so.
Right? I mean, what has he not accomplished?
It would have been his 99th ATP title, which is a towering number.
It is. It's not the most, because Jimmy Connors and all them played a lot.
All them other hoes back in the day.
But, I mean, Roger has been... He didn't play Canada, obviously. This is clearly a good warm-up for him for the U.S. Open. And he looked,
rusty.
He did. But it's funny because he looked rusty, but his serve was almost impeccable through his first 4 matches. He wasn't broken at all. He faced only 5 break points across the first 4 matches before the final. And all of a sudden, the very first game of the final, he fends off 2 break points. So you know this is going to be a different story.
Federer did not play in Cincinnati the last 2 years. 2016 was because of injury. It also coincided with the Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
And then last year he didn't play as well.
Right. And the 2015 year, where he beat Djokovic in the final, was the famous Sabre year, where he debuted Sabre, the sneak attack by Roger, pissed off Novak. And so I think Novak had a lot of not so great memories of playing Roger Federer here.
It was a loud crowd.
Yeah, I was very surprised because there were very, very few Romanians in the crowd for Simona Halep. It's so different from Canada. But here, there were a lot of Serbian flags. I think in number, they were much smaller than the Federer contingent, but in volume, all you heard was Nole.
It was about the same. There were a
You
lot
think
of
so?
times when you heard a lot of chanting and it was equal parts Roger and equal parts Nole.
It was just a very boisterous crowd. Like, I don't think that I've ever seen a final live that was that spirited.
Of course, when you have these 2 legends playing each other in a final, it's going to be hyped. They hadn't played since the Australian Open in 2016. So it'd been a while, 2.5 years since they'd played.
Mm-hmm.
They'd played 45 times before and hadn't played in the last 2.5 years. And what we got was a bit of a lackluster final.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a great match, to be honest. The story was Djokovic was able to break once in each set, and that was that. There weren't a lot of long games, like long, grueling rallies is not really something you're going to get at this stage of Roger Federer's career, I don't think.
We did get Roger Federer being broken from being 40 love up.
Yes.
We had a lot of moments where it was evident that rust was at play for him. Shanked balls, errors at net, some ghastly volleys.
Right. And, I mean, alternatingly, he can do such beautiful things. Some incredible forehands down the line. His serving is beautiful, but it was really not perfect today. The second serve was not great.
And to Federer's credit in press, he said, there are a lot of things I didn't do well today, but this is not what this is about. This is about Novak creating history, and this is his day.
Right.
And Novak reveled in it. Watching Novak after that match, he went to every corner of that court and signed as many balls, as many shirts, as many flags. He took, I would guess, at least 50 selfies. He literally was walking, picking up a phone, just pressing a button, handing it back, doing the same wash, rinse, repeat.
I was so impressed with that. That was very endearing, actually, because I left the stadium, went to get an ice cream, of course, the last ice cream of the week, and he was still out there. It was probably a half hour after the match, and he was, kind of stage directing the selfies, as you say. I saw him checking a few of them to make sure they looked okay, and he was giving the people what they wanted. And I'm sure the organizers were trying to usher him off.
Yeah.
You
I will say he could use a few pointers in the angle of the selfie because he took a lot of those from very low. Like looking up. You got to do the selfie from up high.
For him, he probably looks fine.
Yeah.
From that angle. But
adding
the rest
a couple
of us...
pounds to Novak from that angle will probably do him a world of good.
Right.
That's your shady moment for the podcast.
So the thing with Novak this week, as I mentioned a little earlier, he struggled in a lot of his matches. He went 3 sets in, all of them but one? right? But the final, he went to 3 sets against Mannarino, Dimitrov, Raonic, and Cilic, and did not look his best. And I said this during Wimbledon and was roundly shouted down. I don't think he played his best at Wimbledon. He didn't play his best here, but when it mattered, he played brilliantly. And it shows the kind of mental fortitude this guy has. Like, he just knows how to win. That's so much more impressive than perfection.
This idea of Novak being back, and we saw it with Rafa, and is Rafa back? What matters is if they're winning. I think we're struggling to view these players with how they're playing now and what they're giving us, and comparing it to what we remember. Let's keep in mind too that memories aren't always the best. You know, there's like, we may be romanticizing what their best was back in the day, and the bottom line for them is that they're winning. And Novak can absolutely hang his hat on the fact that he won Wimbledon and he's now won Cincinnati. That is just a stunning turnaround from where he was to start the year.
Yeah, and I think with Rafa has to be considered the favorite, like capital T, the favorite for the U.S. Open.
Oh, capital T for the, not F. I was like, what is going on? And let's be real, it's been a long time since Rafa has been the favorite at the U.S. Open.
Absolutely.
What are some of the other men's matches that we enjoyed? We got a big quarterfinal with Wawrinka and Federer. It was the 24th time that they'd played, and Federer held a head-to-head lead 20-3, and Stan had never beaten him on hard courts. All 3 wins that Stan had over Roger have come on clay.
Right. I felt that Stan outplayed Roger for quite a bit of that match.
The main takeaway from this Wawrinka-Federer match is that Wawrinka is back, or very close to being back, and is possibly a few matches away from playing himself into full form. He was moving well. He's coming off of knee surgery, and we've seen him have some bad losses.
I mean, the backhand is looking great. He's actually winning back-to-back matches. He looks confident.
We saw him give Rafa, your Toronto winner, a big run for his money, pushing him to 7-6, 7-5 sets.
Yeah.
And he was able to bring that to Cincinnati and look good again, and push Federer to 3 sets.
So that was that. We are a Canadian podcast, so maybe we should talk about Milos and Dennis.
Yeah, we parked our asses at that match.
Yeah,
we were
twice.
We were good Canadians.
During one of those horrible days with all the rain delays, those two were able to start their match and play legit 3 points until it started raining again.
Bless Simona Halep. She was resuming her first match on center court, and she was up, I believe, 4-3 or something like that, and she was able to finish the match in like less than 10 minutes before the rain came.
I mean, I swear she won 2 games in like 35 seconds.
Meanwhile, we're out here on court 10. The warm-up takes 10 minutes, presumably because they didn't have time to practice. I learned that on Twitter.
Oh, really?
Because we were both sitting there and like, did she just say 10 minutes? Because that seemed like real long.
Yeah, it felt like forever.
Yeah. So because of that, they were only able to play 3 points before the first interruption. Dennis served to open the match. It was 15-30 when they were delayed. They came back and, like one would expect, played to serve, went to a tiebreak, and Dennis had set point and then flubbed a ball to then really bring Milos back into it and give him the chance to win the set, which he did. And then he ran away to a 3-love lead in the second, got back on serve, but eventually broke again to win the match 7-6, 6-4.
I imagine that Milos is pretty satisfied that he's not done. He's not the second banana in Canada, because Dennis is getting all of the headlines lately.
Yeah.
He is the new thing, and with good reason. But I think Milos is raising his hand and saying, hello, I'm still here. I'm the one who's been the runner-up at Wimbledon, and I've been out here forever.
We just saw him in Toronto get second billing pretty much to Dennis.
Oh, yeah.
At the Rogers Cup.
Yeah.
And he comes here, he beats him, he avenges a loss that he had to Dennis earlier in the year on clay. He lost to Dennis in straight sets.
Mm-hmm.
Beats him this time. He will leave Cincinnati with the top Canadian ranking. It's still in the 20s, but that's not nothing, you know,
Right.
for how much of a forgotten player he's been for much of the last year due to the stop and start nature of his career with injuries. He's now able to potentially have some momentum back in his career, making the quarterfinals here, and quite honestly should have beaten Novak Djokovic.
Yeah.
He held a 5-4 lead, served for that first set, lost the first set, came back, won the second set, and then eventually losing in the third.
Yeah, you know, Milos is not the most electrifying guy, as we know, which accounts for some of the discrepancy in coverage between Shapovalov and him. But there is something cool about watching such a powerful serve in person.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just physically impressive.
It also didn't feel like I was watching a serve bot, which I
No.
was
Yeah.
pleasantly surprised by. I actually somewhat enjoyed watching Milos play.
Mm-hmm. He's got like a nimble little backhand slice.
Mm-hmm.
His two-handed backhand was horrible. Like, I don't think he made a single one over the net in the first set. But the rest of his game actually looked quite nice.
One of the things I took away from tennis this week and learning about myself was just how much I enjoyed watching cross-court backhand slice rallies. Because we got a lot of those with Milos and Djokovic.
Yeah.
And it was something that Milos was able to deploy to upset Djokovic for the first half of that match.
Mm-hmm.
And he kind of went away from it a bit in the end, which I think was to his detriment. But I understand now maybe why I enjoy slicing my backhand so much.
Nick Kyrgios was a big story here in Cincinnati, as he is on basically every tournament grounds that he steps upon.
Mm-hmm.
The impression for me, again, is that Nick is someone who crowds will gravitate toward and are surprisingly generous with. People just feel Nick Kyrgios's charisma, whether it's positive or negative, and want to will him to do good things. You know, it's crazy to see that happen collectively at a match.
Correct me if I'm wrong, because we watched him make the final here last year, but I didn't think that the crowd took him in the way they did this time around. I don't know if it's because more people are becoming aware of who he is. And the narrative surrounding that is, well, Nick is good for the game because he brings eyeballs to the tennis because he does all this crazy shit. And people want to see him behave badly, and the people are there to watch him because when he does behave badly, they're there to tell him how he's terrible for the game.
Right.
But in fact, it was a near universal embrace of Kyrgios at this tournament, despite all the absolutely terrible things he did, of which there were quite a few.
Oh my God. So he was on court 10, which is this sort of small sunken amphitheater court that's very intimate. And we weren't actually at the match. It was kind of standing room only. But the people who were there brought a lot of interesting stuff back from it. He was very vocal with the people on the sidelines. He was super mad about a call and said that I'm going to tank this set so hard. Cursing. I mean, it was just like this small psychodrama, like one character play, being acted out on court 10. And still, people are sending their energy down to Nick, willing him to get through that match.
You can do it, Nick. Don't give up. We're here for you.
Right. How often do you hear that?
He sends a ball, blasts it out of court 10. Could possibly have landed onto center court. I don't think it did, but that's how far he hit it. And apparently he did the same thing in his following match on the grandstand against Del Potro.
Yeah.
I get the impression that when Nick is not well physically, and that's been the story of his young career so far. He's had hip injuries. His knees were taped up. When he's not feeling like he's able to compete because of his body, then all those other antics come into play more. Like he doesn't know how to express disappointment in that regard in any other way.
Mm-hmm. And for us, I feel like I'm glad that you and I have gotten past the whole, like, is Nick good or bad for tennis? Because now it's like, Nick is, period. Like, Nick exists, this is who he is. Nick is an interesting guy, and people, I think, want to almost protect him or like psychoanalyze him. I don't know. Like, he is clearly sensitive and vulnerable, and he wants to sort of mask it by acting out and being tough. And he's obviously very frustrated with where his body is at the moment. So much so that I'm not even sure why he's playing here. You know, I think his lower body's a mess. Like, the hip, as we said before, is very alarming for someone his age. So I don't know. I mean, he is compelling like almost no one else in the game right now.
Yeah, there's shy of watching Federer for the beauty of his game, as folks will tell you, they'll buzz about while they're at a match. You hear that all the time. You know, a simple shot and they'll just ooh and ah. The only thing that matches that, in my opinion, is Nick playing his eccentric brand of tennis.
Right.
And the anticipation of what he'll do next, for better or worse. And the net effect of that is you have somebody who is absolutely... I was very skeptical about this for a long time. Like, I said on this podcast, how many people are actually coming to tennis to see Nick Kyrgios? And the answer from being here in Cincinnati is a lot.
Yeah. Because he's the topic of conversation at the grounds, and you don't really understand that if you're just watching tennis on TV.
No, where it becomes problematic is the ways in which people talk about Nick Kyrgios.
Oh, yeah.
When it becomes just water cooler conversation for people to moralize and to say how he's a horrible person and terrible for the game. That we're not here for. And we've talked about at length in the past about how that's racialized. And the best case in point that we can refer you to is sock, Jack.
Mm-hmm. What else was there? There was the USTA Pride Night. We didn't mention that on the last episode. That was an oversight. But the USTA Midwest section put on this event in the hospitality area. It's catered, open bar, just a celebration of LGBT tennis players. And just, you know, celebrating the queer fans who come out here and support this sport year in and year out.
Thanks to Peter, TieGuy84, he had let us know about this event weeks ago.
Yeah.
But we'd forgotten. You know, it was on the Tuesday, I believe, and the first few days of the tournament are so busy with going between All Access Hour, and then this year we had the coaches roundtable stuff and getting ourselves situated at the tournament that we totally forgot. It wasn't until we were running some errands and I said, well, let me go get a milkshake. Because I literally never have milkshakes. And for some reason in the last month, a vanilla milkshake is my jam. And so this is my 4th year in Cincinnati. That was the first time I'd been to Grater's to get some kind of ice cream related treat.
It is so good.
It really is.
Yeah.
And at that stall, I ran into a listener of the show. We were able to meet Phil and John. And you weren't there at the time, but I spoke to them for a little bit, and then we had to go run an errand. And Phil had said to me, "Are you going to this thing later today?" And it's like, I don't really know what you're talking about. And like, oh yeah, the Pride Night thing. When is it? You know, because
it's like now.
Yeah, it was an event totally separate from what we were having access to, right?
And we actually failed to register for it, but the organizers were so kind and let us in and gave us a pass. So thanks to USTA Midwest for putting that on. That was really nice.
And we were able to hang out with Phil and John again at the event and had a great time. Thank you guys for listening to the show and the support, and it was wonderful to meet you in person.
Happening around the grounds, other than Nick Kyrgios, this was actually hilarious. At the All-Canadian match, at Dennis and Milos's match.
It was hilarious for you. I was fuming.
Yeah, you were very annoyed, but I laughed. So we were sitting like in the front row on the corner, and there was a father and son next to us, and a ball flew into the stands, obviously, with those two serving, and a teenage kid like caught it, and he was all excited.
This guy was in front of us, like a little bit in front of us to the right, and then the dad and like the 5-year-old was to the left of us.
Yeah, so this teenager caught the ball, and then this guy, the dad leans over and is like, it's my son's dream to catch a ball at this tournament. Meanwhile, the child is like a toddler. The kid is like 4 years old. It's not his dream, first of all. And he says, Can I give you $1 for the ball? $1. $1. We talking about $1.
And best believe he was serious about that dollar.
Because...
Wait for it. I have to tell this part.
Yes.
Okay, so the kid in front, he's like, no, really, it's fine. After he's been coerced, hoodwinked into giving up this ball, right? This dude is now telling him, I'll give you $1 for it. He's like, no, that's fine. Keep your fucking dollar.
Well, because it's insulting.
Exactly. So this dude, now the play is carrying on. And then the ball kid, who is doing so much work, he's stationed right in front of us. He's running around, doing all this stuff. He comes over and he's like, where the ball at?
Right,
he wants the ball back.
He's like, they want me to get the ball back.
And as soon as he says that, the dad grabs the ball and hides it in his bag. So now this teenager in front is vulnerable to like the umpire, the ball kid, all these people searching for this ball. And he has to like decide if he's going to lie or just wait it out. Meanwhile, this dad is like there now fiddling around, tells the kid to, give me the bag, another bag. And he pulls out, wait for it. He pulls out a box of Quaker Oats fucking granola bars. And I was like, okay, I guess this is all settled. They're off to eating now. No, it's barter time. After a point finishes, he taps the kid on the shoulder and he's like, oh, I don't have $1. Can I give you this instead? Mind you, I saw him ruffling through his wallet. He had a $5 bill. He had a $10 bill. He had a whole lot of bills in there. Just not the $1 bill that his cheap ass wants to give this dude. The kid is like, no, I don't need this granola bar. Really, it's fine. And he's like, no, but the kid wants to share it with you.
Meanwhile, this child is like not even paying attention.
The kid doesn't know what the fuck is going on. I just could not. It was an absurd moment.
Alexis Ohanian was down there getting ice cream after Serena's loss, just talking to fans. I found that so fascinating. Serena and the rest of the team were kind of whisked off center court, have to go to press. Isha walked into press with her as her bodyguard, But Alexis is out there just hanging around.
Having the time of his life.
A lot of people did not know who he was. Mm-hmm. So there's a small group of people around him.
But they were there for a while.
Yeah, they were kind of monopolizing him. Mm-hmm. Another interesting thing that happens off TV is that in his match with Nick Kyrgios, Del Potro left the court for a 9-minute bathroom break. The bathrooms are not really that far away from the grandstand, but apparently as he was leaving, it's been reported by some members of the press to us, he slammed his water bottle on the ground and it like went flying. Like people got wet.
And then the water bottle like fly into the stands?
Well, I don't know that. I can't confirm that.
Okay.
So, but it's just funny because had that happened on court, that could have been something as serious as a default. Mm-hmm. But it happened, it's happening during the match, but it's like on the way to the bathroom.
And certainly Nick did not need all that distraction after winning the first set.
He was mad about the bathroom break. Very mad.
2 other things I want to talk about before we get to the end of this episode. One of the benefits of watching tennis live is that you get to watch players that you only see on TV. And in some instances, you get a whole new appreciation for them. 2 players for me were Borna Coric and Martin Fucsovics. And while we've talked about Coric on this podcast for other reasons, and quite extensively, not always has it been about his game. But I find his game beautiful to watch. There's something very structured and organized about his tennis that also has an equal amount of panache and style and tradition to his strokes that I quite enjoy.
Yeah, we're talking about Coric still, right?
Yes.
I get distracted when I hear his name,
Oh my God.
Watching him like way up close, you get a better sense of all these top spins and back spins and side spins that he can do. He employs the slice very well. It is a cool, like a nifty little game to watch.
As for Fucsovics, I saw him play Stan Wawrinka. The lines in his body when he's playing tennis, they're so beautiful. Like he could be the Jerry West logo of tennis.
What's Jerry West?
He is the monogram on the NBA's logo.
Oh, okay.
He casts such a beautiful shadow when he's playing tennis. He can slice, he can come to net. He can play any shot, essentially.
Yeah.
He's roundabout top 40 now. As for what his ceiling is, I don't know. But I thoroughly enjoyed watching him play.
You know who I liked was watching Joanna Konta and Yelena Ostapenko play doubles together. That was a blast because they play on very small courts with just a few bleachers on each side. You can really sit like in the front row. It wasn't very packed at all. They were playing Makarova and Hradecka, who ended up winning the tournament in women's doubles. But Kontapenko is a pretty good team, actually.
Yeah.
And so Ostapenko is not the greatest volleyer, and the serve obviously needs work. The first serve is much improved. The second is still a problem. But for many of the points, Konta is pretty lethal at the net for the most part. So Konta was content to stay up there. Many times Makarova and Hradecka would bypass her, be hitting in the backcourt, and Yelena would just have to kind of run back and forth and just bomb forehands and backhands back and forth. And if you are in a long rally against Ostapenko, you're probably going to lose if you are, at this stage, mainly a doubles player. Like, she's a top-flight singles player, right? Makarova is absolutely deadly on the volley, so in the games when she was mostly up front, it was usually a foregone conclusion, but it was a very tight match.
That's a good segue to tell you that Makarova and Hradecka went on to win the women's doubles title, and on the men's side, Jamie Murray and Bruno Suarez won the doubles title. And for Jamie Murray, it was his first ever Masters doubles title.
Right, which I found very surprising.
Bruno Suarez has won 2 with other partners, but it was Jamie's first.
So we are at the end of our week in Cincinnati. Again, it was a very rewarding week. I wanted to outro with something that Marin Cilic told us in his All Access Hour because I found it endearing and kind of, I don't know how to describe it. I think I should let it sit on its own because it really drew me to him.
Marin, I get the sense that you don't get enough credit for the accomplishments in your career, for being a Grand Slam champion, consistently top 10, making multiple finals.
Yeah,
You seem to have a
from
lower
myself.
profile. Is that something you enjoy? Or do you wish you'd get more recognition for what you've done?
I don't mind, I don't mind, we have in tennis so many great athletes that, fans enjoy, and especially, I'm so grateful that I was in this era. With guys like that, I think that made me better, and I'm probably as good as ever I've been as a tennis player. So I'm always improving, always learning from the top guys, also learning from all over the guys, all the other guys. You can learn always some new things, and that makes it so special. And for accomplishments, I get that. From my team, from closer ones, if not from the fans. But I'm feeling good where I'm at.
Stay tuned next week for our U.S. Open preview. Just a little
teaser.
A little teaser is that we will have our interview with David Taylor, who is the coach of Madison Keys, and our questions for Kamau Murray, obviously the coach of Sloane Stephens. We thought it would be a nice piece of symmetry to talk to the coaches of both last year's women's finalists at the U.S. Open.
Thanks for listening. If you want to catch up with the totality of everything that we've done in Cincinnati, head to thebodyserve.com. We wrote a few articles there. Check out our Instagram. There's some new pictures. There'll be more from Final Sunday. We also had a few dorky 60-second videos. We're going to be using...
it's maybe not our preferred medium, but you actually get to see our faces and voices at the same time.
We're going to be using Insta Stories more. We're heading
because I figured out how to use it.
Yeah, we are heading into 2015.
Right.
On that note, my name is Jonathan. You can find me on Twitter at tennis_John.
And I'm James. I'm at ElliotJMR.
2 L's, 2 T's. The Body Serve is on iTunes, any podcast catcher, any podcast app. If you've enjoyed our coverage, if you like the podcast, please, one of the best ways that you can support us is to give us a review on iTunes. That helps bump our profile up and helps other people find the show.
Thanks for keeping up with us in Cincinnati, and we're going to be doing a lot more writing on thebodyserve.com soon, so look out for that.
Till next time.
Thank you. Thank you very much.